For those who have heard of Rise Beyond the Reef before, you may be aware of the work they do and the lives they've helped change through the beautiful Fijian-made products that they've engaged local women and men to craft. And if you've never heard of Rise Beyond the Reef before, our episodes tonight and next week will hopefully shed some light on the incredible work the RBTR team do. Semi and Janet Lotawa have dedicated their lives to helping others. Tonight we hear the story of how Rise Beyond the Reef came to be. I was curious to know the meaning behind the unique name, Rise Beyond the Reef. Janet says the name was all Semi's idea.
Rise Beyond the Reef. The reef signifies whatever difficulties they have. In the communities, whatever, the community would be the mountain, the community up in the regions, but those in the maritime, it would be the reef. The things that is hard for them to get over, to be able to successfully participate in local economy, or women to participate in business. So the name Rise Beyond the Reef is the focus is to help to rise above that, and so that they can successfully participate in those ventures.
Janet Lotawa found her entry point to community development work as a teenager, awestruck by the warmth of island communal culture. She knew at a young age this is where her future lay. Given her passion for working to enable what she believes in, Janet worked as a development and fundraising professional for more than 10 years at non-profit organizations focused on education and equity in the United States. She considers co-founding Rise Beyond the Reef one of her major life goals and is deeply committed to changing the reality of life for women and children in the South Pacific through creative and effective community development strategies. She is married to Semi. They have 2 sons together and has spent time in Fiji supporting the needs of women and children on an informal basis for more than 14 years.
Honestly, I think it's been sort of what we feel is sort of a life path. We met each other as teenagers, and for me as an American, sort of fell in love immediately with the communal lifestyle in Fiji that we don't have in the States. And so wanting for both of us to find a way to come back to Fiji and to support sort of the aspects of the culture that we thought were so unique and so critical to sort of teaching ways to the rest of the world. When we looked at sort of the scope of our work, obviously there's so much that can be addressed in communities. The needs are broad and opportunities are quite broad, but we really feel like our theory of change has been our guiding light in terms of really feeling that women, investing in women is what provides sort of the best opportunity for progress in communities globally, and so that's where we tended to focus our work.
Semi Lotawa is an indigenous Fijian from Lotawa village, Yaketemba. He grew up in the traditional setting of his village, attended a remote boarding school, and is one of about 5% of students from his district that graduated from high school. Semi worked in forestry with a focus on sustainable community development. Realizing that his effectiveness was tied to the whims of international grants, he moved to the United States to pursue a degree in business. His goal was to secure sizable investment from the private sector markets within the United States in order to continue his passionate pursuit of sustainable development for indigenous communities in the Pacific. He worked as an investment analyst for 5 years, co-founded Serevi Rugby, and is the CEO of Callison Pacific Pine Chemicals.
When we were back in the States, every time we come back, we see the gaps that rural and remote communities have to the government sector, to the aid sector, and to the private sector. So part of the work that when we came back was to be the bridge to those gaps. Our work only focused with rural and remote communities, and building up capacity to be able to create value, and also to work along with initiatives that the government or aid sectors is trying to push forward into protecting the resource of the indigenous communities.
My name is Sena Momoyalewa, and I'm from Nabilawa village. Yeah, we are the women. We have to do some traditional work. Yes, we have to paint tapas, to make flowers, and also we have to make sila necklace. So sometimes we get the sila to make flowers with the sila, and we have to take to the Rise Beyond the Reef. We have to learn a lot of money from it. It's from the ladies here. So this is about the school children, and we have to give our money from the village.
Rise Beyond the Reef was set up with the focus of, women's rights and children. But when we sat down and listened to the community, they say, yes, those are great things, but for us, what we need right now is to earn our own income, specifically the women. Separate income from their family, like, the bazaar, the selling in the market. And that's after hearing and understanding that, we came back to the drawing board and said, this is how they articulate their needs. This is their number one. Our number one was like their number 4. So we had to lead with what they were saying, and because they wanted to have their own income, and that's how we ended up with arts and craft. Those are some of the things that they already have, the pandanus, the weaving skills, and we just had to assess where they were and build on their capacity to produce, so that they can supply quality and consistency to the market, which was what the private sector was looking for.
My name is Sulueti. I hail from the land of Taveuni, and I got married in Vatawa, in Yakete, Vatawa in Ba. Rise Beyond the Reef help us for learn something, how to make the sasa basket and the laundry basket and placemat. And we have a horse too, and a goat.
Each craft does indeed have its own story. Stay tuned for more.
Bulavinaka, my name is Lanyeta Tunakau, and I'm from Sayoko village, and we're making orders for the Rise Beyond the Reef. We are making tambe and vow tassel shell, and we're making coconuts. I'm the coordinator for Sayoko village, and we are so happy that Rise Beyond the Reef came to visit us after the TC Winston, and we are so helpful all together, and we are working as a group. We have 3 groups in Sayoko village.
Rise Beyond the Reef's traditional contemporary arts and crafts income generating program has 4 goals for women in rural Fiji. First, women are given opportunities to develop leadership skills. Second, women crafters earn much needed income. Third, they help develop regional and international markets for these goods. And last but certainly not the least, the program helps preserve and promote traditional arts and crafts skills. And while the women in the village create their handmade masterpieces, the machines at the store do the rest.
To be able to finish like this, you need these machines that can sew this.
Yeah.
In the community, they don't have electricity.
And
So to do the Velcro and to sew the fabric into the mat, you need a very high-powered machine. And this is where these beautiful people come to but the unique one thing about our product is We always keep
Wow.
this tag, which is called the Talano tag. You'll see.
Oh, there? Each Rise Beyond the Reef product comes with a Talano tag. The tags carry the story of the women that brought them to life. And while not all items can be completed by hand, machinist coordinator Anju and her team step in to add the finishing touch. Anju joined the RBTR team full-time in January 2018, helping to increase their production capacity. With over 10 years factory experience working as a machinist and supervising production, Anju helps make product development ideas come to life.
Yes, this is the head mask, adult head mask that we wear over our head. And this is the ear mask. This is also the adult one that we wear through our ears.
Rise Beyond the Reef strive to bridge the divide between remote communities, government, and the private sector in the South Pacific, sustainably creating a better world for women and children. RBTR's vision states, there is no reason not to value the inherent intelligence and resilient nature of cultures that have self-sustained for thousands of years. If we can create an authentic space for their voices to be heard, where remote community members can feel valued for where they come from, they will know how to rise. It's not about helping the poor. It's about creating value around the important role remote communities play in our world's whole picture. It's about valuing rather than extracting. It's about supporting rather than directing. It's about seeing our collective future. That's when we all rise together. Before the pandemic drastically affected our tourism industry, these communities were able to sustain themselves from the sale of their crafts. This is where we, as the wider community, can now step in to help. By purchasing from them, you will also become a part of the bridge to help better the quality of life for these women, children, and their families. Head to www.risebeyondthereef.org to shop crafts, learn more of their story, and most importantly, lend a helping hand. These look great, but when you invest in something like this, you're investing in someone's future, someone's life, someone's livelihood. And Rise Beyond the Reef is helping out so many communities and so many people by doing this. So if you're going to spend your money somewhere, spend your money in the places that matter, in the places that are making a difference in the lives of others.
My name is Kali Simbosi, and I'm from Mambala, and I'm the coordinator from the Rise Beyond the Reef. We make some fruit duff and sila necklaces, and some of the ladies wave the mats. Before we didn't know how to wave the mats, so now you can see some ladies was just make now. It's good for the people from Mambala, especially for the family. Help us in for the community. How we work together, and how we know some of the handicrafts that we forgot.
Next, the coronavirus pandemic and how they've adjusted.
Coordinator in Kiriakumba. We are 14, 15 women we made dolls in our community. Dolls, make dolls, and bow angels, and some of us made laundry basket. And it helped us, our family and our community, especially for this for us to help us, our family, and help our community and our village.
Business was booming up until we were hit by the pandemic. Familiar words that we now hear a little too often. And like many other businesses, Rise Beyond the Reef needed to adjust.
After COVID-19, the tourism market has slowed down we have to keep on digging deep and figure out how can we move forward with this. None of us prepared for it. But what this community have is the land. They have the resource. Some of them have the advantage of the elevation, and some of the off-season crop can be planted in there. We looked at the commodities that already have existing pathways to Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. And they said, okay, it's the same concept that they were using to supply to the tourism market. We've diverted that to the agriculture sector to plant things. In the Tikinakete, we have about 8-9 villages, and using the power of the community, the Solo-Solivaki, for them to plant crops that is demanded by the overseas market. And so already have the pathways under the bilateral quarantine agreement.
I think there's always been a demand for agriculture. I mean, 80% of what people eat in Fiji is imported. So I think unfortunately there's a lot of just complacency in terms of meeting those needs, and a lot of barriers that are hard for communities to bridge on their own to be able to do so. So obviously it's a huge, not only important aspect to people's sort of food security and survival right now, with so much unemployment, but also it's a market opportunity because health and wellness products over the next few years is going to be seeing a massive boom for obvious reasons. And so for us, with the tourism sector sort of in hibernation mode for a while, we have to really look at what are the other things we can buy from communities. So going back to sort of health and wellness, plant-based products is really where the opportunity lies for sort of mass production.
The concept of Basa exchange is based on the idea that we have that Fiji can feed Fiji. In the midst of this pandemic, we have to fight with what we have. And that involves everybody in the community. Here in rural and remote communities, we are producing or we are sharing what we have to our brothers and sisters in the urban areas who are in lockdown and the containment zone. It's about equity, sharing what we have to those that they need. And it's a balance. In the idea of Solo-Solivaki, it's coming together for a greater good, beyond just oneself. And when we want to employ the concept of Solo-Solivaki, we need to include everybody. Solo-Solivaki, it's about everybody contributing into a bigger battle that is to support each other during these difficult times. This concept of Basa exchange, where the aid sector provide financial support to be able for us to come to this rural and remote community and purchase crops at village gate. Often many of these communities, they've lost their opportunities in the market that they used to go to, but they have the crops. So promoting of circular economy, where funding comes from the aid sector, we purchase crops from the community at village gate, and we take the crops and share it to those that are in containment and lockdown areas. At the end, this community goes to small shops in towns or in their community to buy things that they need. The supporting of social circular economy and during this pandemic time.
It's after a year now. Our market, we struggled and it's been dropped. It's very hard for us to take our produce to Suva. Not many people there to buy. Today, we are so fortunate that our organization are here to buy our vegetables and coconuts to take to our brothers and sisters who have been locked down for quite some time now in Suva.
We're really happy that we're part of the Ambassa exchange.
We are lucky enough to meet this farm gate buying, just buying from a farm.
I'm happy to be part of that. We have a lot of food to share.
Not only help us with money, it contribute a lot to the people who lock down in Suva.
Big lalamba baklef from the people around the world from Berberi.
We are sending this food to our brothers and sisters, and we're sending it with our love and hope that you will get better.
To learn more about their work, visit www.risebeyondthereef.org. And to learn more about the FO for ACP project, head to www.pacificfarmers.com. Next week, bringing the concept of Soli Solivaki to life, we're heading all the way up to Yaketemba.
Now we are using the land, which we planted different kinds of vegetables and root crops. Firstly, it helps us, the family needs, and the Vanua, the village.
A jam-packed show coming up next week. We'll see you then.